without further ado, let's just go through the pre-introduction to everything that we're going to be going through today. So we'd just like to start off our presentation by doing a land acknowledgement. The UBC Okanagan campus is hosted on the unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan people. As you can see here, the territory spans a lot into the Okanagan and a little bit into the States. And you can see a lovely photo of the campus that you all should be joining fairly soon. Perfect. So we've got our agenda, kind of a rundown of what we want to go through today. We'll be starting with this opening information, giving you guys a little bit of tidbit of knowledge before we start. We'll then head into talking about academic advising, the DRC, recommended and required materials for your time here at UBC, the Engineering Society, the Students' Union, professional development, study tips, and then finally you'll hear from our guest, Dr. Voderbaum. Bam. And then FAQ and questions after that. Apologize, my computer's being silly. So just want to preface for everybody who's in the presentation right now, this will be recorded and is going to be uploaded onto YouTube under the School of Engineering YouTube channel. So please keep everything respectful and professional while we're doing this. So no unprofessional questions, and keep everything on topic, please. Second thing is, if you have a question during the presentation, you're able to put that in the chat down at the bottom part of the Zoom features. The chat will be shared to everybody. So you can ask a question and then everybody can upvote whatever questions they would like to be answered, which then we'll get to near the end of the presentation time. So if you have a question, put it there. We'll be sure to get to it at the end if we're able to. And then the final thing before we start getting into the real meat and potatoes of the presentation, please check your emails very regularly as a student. When you're coming into the university, there's going to be a lot of information coming at you. Like, you got the presentation information for this event, as well as other stuff, including like your coursework or important information from the school. It is vitally important that new students and current students be up to date with their email and be constantly checking. There's so much information that you could miss, and it is your responsibility to be checking and having that information up to date. So perfect. We'll head into our first guest speaker. Let's hear from Tamara from Academic Advising.
Thanks, Elliot. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Whatever time zone you're in, we're so excited to have you and can't wait to help you when you are on our campus and we get to see you in the future. My name is Tamara Winiger, and I'm an academic and career advisor on UBC's Okanagan campus. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm just going to talk today a little bit about what academic advising is and how you can access those services. So here at UBC Okanagan, we have an entire office called Academic and Career Development. And so the Academic and Career Development Office is split up into three categories: academic and career advising, which is me. There's 12 of us here that can help all students across the campus. We also have career development specialists. So those career development specialists you can book specifically with, and you can discuss more career outcomes. So pathways to master's program, pathways into different industries. They have a really great wealth of knowledge to chat a little bit more beyond your academics, which is what academic and career advising would be chatting about. And then we also offer experiential education. So this is a way for you to get involved in experiential education during your time at UBC. It's very, very important for like resume building. This can include co-op, this can include career fairs, this could include specific events. This could include credentials. So there's a lot of things that you can find out if you access our services. Even if it's just once a year, it's a really great way to kind of get connected with advising and learn a little bit more about how you can help yourself for the future. So what does advising do? What can we help with? You can come in and you can ask, like, what courses do I need to take? In engineering, it seems like pretty straightforward. There's a program plan and we tell you what you need to take, but sometimes students want to take less. Maybe you want to spread your degree over 5 years instead of 4. So chatting with an advisor to see how you can map that out. Maybe you want to see what summer classes are being offered. So we can kind of answer everything that has to do with our course offerings. as well as kind of how to get to that degree completion timeline. If you have any transfer credit, so if you're first year coming in and you have any AP, IB, or A levels, you can always ask about how you might be able to use that in your degree. Um, we also refer out. There's so many things to know at UBC, and there's so many great resources, but it's hard to really understand all of them. So we can help refer you to places like the Student Learning Hub or counseling. So there's lots of really great places to start with us and then branch out from there. And then some other things. How can you balance your studies to make your time more enjoyable? What are some really key deadlines and policies that the university holds students to? So please always come and ask. If you don't know what to ask, that's okay too. You can come in and we can kind of go through things. So all students are able to book with academic advising. We are open Monday to Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. generally. And you would just book online. So we use a booking system called Com100. You can save that QR code there, or you can access us through the webpage, and you'll have access to all 12 advisors. The big key thing to know is that our appointments are usually only available 72 hours in advance. So you can only book up to 3 days in advance. So if everything looks full and you're like, there's no appointments ever, it just means you have to wait another half an hour, another day for new appointments to open up. It's kind of a rolling 72 hours. So please feel free to book with us at the beginning of the term, middle of the term, end of term, at least for sure once a year. It's nice to check in. So hopefully we get to see you when you arrive on campus.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tamara, for your time. And yeah, if you have any questions, please go to academic advising. You can scan the QR code that'll bring you to the website. You can book an appointment. And yeah, perfect. Let's move on to the next section. Thank you again for your time, Tamara.
The next little bit we're going to go on about is the Disability Resource Center, or the DRC. So the Disability Resource Center works to facilitate accommodations to people who have disabilities. Lots of things they help with. They can go over mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety. They can give you private rooms for your test taking and give you extended time to kind of help with those things. They can also address neurological disabilities such as ADHD, autism, and learning disabilities, as well as chronic health conditions and physical and sensory disabilities. They can provide note takers for classes, things like that.
We also just want to note that that
Yeah,
list there is not comprehensive and that if you have a condition that is not listed here, please check with the DRC and
yeah,
they'll find an accommodation for you.
yep. And then to apply, you can book a session with the accessibility advisors to complete your registration package. It's best to apply early, as if you kind of start during the school year, you can end up not getting the resources you need for tests that are taken early on. So, as early as possible, it's best to get your registration package done. You can learn more about the DRC by going through the QR code or going to the link shown right there.
Perfect. Let's start with the recommended and required materials that you guys are going to want going into your first year. So we'll start with the general materials. You're going to want some sort of writing device, whether that be pens, pencils, erasers, and whatnot. Um, there are multiple different ways that you're able to take notes. You can either do it physically on pen and paper. If you have a laptop or a tablet that has something like OneNote or I don't remember the name of the one program, but it's a note-taking app that you could have on one of your devices. You're free to do that. We also recommend stuff like rulers and highlighters in case you want to keep your information organized. Um, just the normal writing stuff that you would have had in your high school or pre-university experience. Next thing we want to talk about is laptops. Most of the programs that you're going to use in your engineering education don't work on Mac operating systems. You're going to want a Windows computer if you haven't already invested in one, or if you have a Mac computer, that's a-okay. There are also computers that are hosted in the library that you can use if you don't currently have a personal computer. But if you want a recommendation, something that runs Windows will be the best thing that you can have. And then we want to talk about the free programs that you can actually access while you're a UBC student. All of you should have hopefully set up your CWL at this point, and if you haven't, then that's okay. There's still time. Using your CWL, you are able to get access to some of the free programs listed here. There, there are more, and you can check that out on the website link down there. But some of the notable ones are SolidWorks, a 3D design software that is going to be required of you for your first year classes. MATLAB, another really important coding and programming program. You can have access to the Microsoft Office suite, so stuff like Word and Docs, not Docs, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. You'll be able to access for free, as well as the UBC VPN, which allows you to remotely access the UBC network from any location. Certain programs and websites are locked behind being on campus. So this lets you access that if you, say, are away on vacation, going back to home, or something like that.
Next up is calculators. Calculators are really, really important in engineering. We have two approved calculators that you can use, the TI-36X Pro or the Casio FX99 1ES Plus C. Either works. The functionality is pretty much the same for both of them, but you cannot use any other calculators in your exams or tests. You must have one of these two calculators. They're available to purchase on campus in the bookstore, or if you get an NSOC Frosh kit, which Stefan will talk about a little bit later, they'll be included in the Frosh kit. There's also some required drawing equipment for your first year courses. You will need a ruler, protractor, compass. Usually they come in one of those kits. Again, you can get them on campus at the bookstore or in your Frosh kit. Lab safety is also really important. You'll have lots of labs in your first year, and you could potentially be working with dangerous materials or machines, so it's very important that you have the correct protective equipment. The required PPE for most engineering labs is a lab coat and safety goggles. They are also available in the bookstore and in your Frosh kit. Later into your engineering journey, you might need some extra materials, but profs will always let you know if you need anything additional for your labs. Now I'll hand it over to Stefan, who's going to talk about the Engineering Society and about Frosh kits as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Savannah. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Stefan Sjetic. I'm the president of the Okanagan Engineering Society. So that is the engineering undergraduate student body that you all belong to. And I'm here just to talk a bit more about what the Engineering Society can provide to you so that you succeed personally, professionally, and academically during your time here at UBC Okanagan. So just a bit about the Engineering Society, which we call ENGSOC for short. So as I mentioned, our purpose is primarily to provide social, professional, and academic services to UBCO engineering students. We also represent UBCO engineering students on campus and in the greater community. And we also advocate for engineering students' needs. So that's liaising with professors, liaising with the School of Engineering, explaining what the sentiment is among the student body at that time. And that kind of ties into that fourth point there. We aim to maintain communication between disciplines, student groups, and the community. And obviously, our primary goal, as I mentioned, is just to ensure that your needs as students are met. So, in that goal of supporting you all as students here at UBC Okanagan, we offer many events and services. So the primary thing that I'm here to talk about today is our Frosh kits. So I'll talk more about that later, but I'll go through everything else here on the slide first. We also have engineering merchandise, so hoodies that say UBC Engineering. If you want those, we also help fund conferences, send student to conferences. That's a great opportunity to get some experiential learning. As Tamara mentioned earlier, we also host office hours if you have questions about how we operate or just want to talk to a senior student. We host the Okanagan engineering competition. So that is an opportunity for you to apply your skills. And then if you do win, you can go to the next level, which is Western engineering competition, and then eventually the Canadian engineering competition. Last year, I believe that was hosted in Montreal, I want to say, I'm not sure. We also have our red takeover, so our classic kind of red engineering jackets. We host Engineering Week, so that's at the start of the year, which you will all get to know, and it's kind of social events to help first year students get to know each other. We have Avalanche as well. That's like a social event in the second term. We have the Discipline Olympics, more low-key game nights, and as well study sessions. So there are plenty of great resources on campus. I previously worked as a supplemental learning leader, and as part of my initiative kind of going into this year, I'd like to create more study sessions, and that's to just like before a midterm or a final exam in every course, have an opportunity for you to come in, ask questions, review things, and much more. Sorry, one second, I just disconnected. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that. Frosh kits. So, as part of a service we offer to first year students and anyone actually, what we do is, as Elliot and Savannah were talking, they were mentioning all of these different materials that you needed for your first year. If you were to buy all of these things individually at the bookstore, that would run you $126.57. So what we've done instead is we've ordered these supplies in bulk, and then we're passing on the savings to you and basically subsidizing the cost of these materials. So we have three different bundles: the school only bundle, which comes with everything you need for classes and doesn't include merch. We have the everything bundle, which includes merch, and then we have extra merch, which obviously includes extra merch. So included in that are your safety goggles, which you will need for your first year chemistry classes, your lab coat, which again you'll need for your first year chemistry classes, drawing equipment, which you will need for AppSci 171, which is your CAD CAM class, where you'll use SolidWorks, as Elliot was mentioning, and as well an SOE approved calculator. So if you do buy our Frosh kit, we guarantee that you will have a calculator you can use in exams. You'll also get engineering paper as well, which you need for a couple of classes. And then in terms of merchandise, you'll get some patches, which in terms of engineering culture is something people like to trade when they go away to conferences or just among friends. And you'll also get a sweater that says UBC Engineering. If you'd like to pre-order one, you can do so by scanning the QR code there. It'll take you to our rubric page where you can choose which bundle tool you'd like, and you'll be able to pick them up at the start of the school year once you're here in person. And the last thing is where to find us. So our NSOC office is in the Engineering Management and Education building, which you will all get to know very well, room 1253. You can also follow us on Okanagan NSOC on Instagram to keep up to date with our events and get involved, or you can visit our website there or scan the QR code. I think that's about it for me, but thank you.
Perfect. Thank you again for your time, Stefan. We will be moving on to the student union. So each and every one of you is, while also a part of the engineering society, is also a member of the students union. So the UBC-GO students union is there to represent you and focus on making UBC a safer and more accessible place that is more community oriented and just fun to be around. They provide a lot of services for the students, such as health and dental coverage, the UBC U Pass, which is your bus pass that you will have access to when you're in Kelowna, the pantry, a student food bank that allows, in case you just want to grab some food and you're a little low on money, you can go there. And it's, I believe there's no like donations, nothing. You can just, if you need something, you can take it. And there are also various resource centers, such as the IPC, the PRC, the PSN, and the WRC, which are more focused student groups that all align around something that the students have in common, and you can just communicate with people that are like-minded and are living with the same sort of lifestyles that you would be. If you want to check out the SUO website, you can scan the QR code. There's a lot more information on the services that they offer. We're going to delve into one specifically right now, which is the UMO Bus Pass. So Kelowna is pretty big, so getting around might be a little bit of a struggle if you don't happen to have a car or a bike or some other form of transport, what the UMO Bus Pass does is it allows you to access the Kelowna bus network and get around the city in case you need to grab groceries or you want to just have fun, go to the mall, go down to the beach. Whatever your heart desires, you're able to get there with the bus. So there are two methods for using the bus. You can either download the UMO app, or you could go to the UNC and go to the student union office and get a physical card. I'm, I believe that in your first week of September, you'll be sent an email with an activation code that you can then use either in the app or when you get a physical card, there'll be a code that you can scan onto the website. By using that activation key, you'll be able to access the bus network and just get around for free as many times as you want. Sorry, you pay for the bus pass in your tuition, but after that, it's free. So let's move on to professional development.
Yeah, so professional development kind of encompasses a bunch of different things within engineering. There's lots of clubs. Professional development also includes the co-op program, things like that. Just the next slide, please, Elliot. Thank you. So professional development aims to build your skills for the workplace. It kind of gets you prepared through club experience, co-op experience, research, all those kinds of things. The professional development program encourages hands-on learning in a number of practical applications. As I said, we've got co-op, research, entrepreneurship, we've got work studies, and then clubs and engineering design teams. And I'll just get into a little bit about each of those things in the next slides. Elliot. So the co-op program is pretty all-encompassing. The co-op program is a university-supported work term in industry that allows for students to apply their knowledge and develop on-the-job training while completing their degree. So essentially, you're able to take a couple months or even up to a year off in the middle of your degree and go get some work experience in real companies. Co-op is available to most students starting in their second year. The program is competitive and there's limited spots, so having good grades and lots of experience definitely helps your chances. You can attend information sessions that are hosted by the co-op office to learn more. You can visit that link. But currently, I'm in the co-op program, and it's definitely a good experience to have. You can apply starting after your second year, and then you can do it at any point in time in your degree after that. You can take it in multiple chunks. You could do a 4-month and then take a little couple classes and then another 4-month co-op, or you can just do straight 12 or 16 months in a row if you'd like. It's pretty flexible and you can kind of do what you want with it. The co-op program also provides you with tons of different resources for when you're applying for co-op jobs. We have the UBC Job Board, which is a place where you can kind of see all the different jobs hosted by companies, and the companies partner with UBC in order to kind of get our students the best experience they can in co-op and have the most opportunity that they possibly can. Next, I'll talk a little bit about clubs and engineering design teams, or EDTs. Clubs and EDTs are a great way to build your engineering teamwork skills and build strong connections with other people in engineering. We've got tons of clubs and design teams throughout UBCO. The design teams are a little different than clubs in the sense that typically design teams will build a product and then work to go compete somewhere. For example, Motorsports has been building an electric car essentially, and they'll go for competition every year. And then we have Okanagan Rovercraft, which is a new club this year, who is trying to become an EDT. I'm actually part of it, and we'll be going to compete in the Canadian International Rover Challenge in Drumheller this year, which is really amazing. UBCO Aerospace is also a very well-known engineering design team on campus. They compete in multiple competitions throughout the year, and they have tons to offer in terms of the variety of teams you can join. no matter which part of engineering you're interested or what you're taking, there's always some place that you could learn something new or try things you haven't before. If normally you're in mechanical engineering, but you're really interested in being in electrical or doing things that are related to electrical engineering, an EDT is an amazing place to kind of build those skills. There's a little difference between engineering design teams and clubs. Clubs typically don't compete and they're more on the event side of things. So they host study tips and kind of Women in Engineering typically hosts breakfast at the beginning of every year. So that's an amazing resource. They also partner with comp sci clubs and do other things like that, hosting tons of events throughout the year. There's a huge variety of clubs at UBCO, so checking them all out is definitely the way to go. Joining a club in your first year can also help with making new friends and kind of building your community. So I would definitely recommend checking out all the clubs and design teams we have. You'll also be able to learn more about them in the first couple days. We always have a club fair. Usually we have one during something we have called Create in the first couple days of school. And then during Jumpstart, typically there is also a club fair, so you can kind of go see what the clubs are all about, talk to people, and learn a little bit about the clubs and design teams we have at UBCO. The design teams are very widely different in terms of what they do, so there's lots of different things you can get into. If you are interested in civil engineering, we have design teams that compete in environmental competitions for structure building. We have design teams that are super mechanical in what they do, and typically, along with the mechanical side, electrical engineering is always needed as well. Computer engineering is typically also always in there with the programming side of things, so it's a great space to kind of build a community of people you have kind of who you know who can do different things. So in the future, if you're like, oh, I need someone who can code something for me, you have people you can reach out to and kind of building that network, which is super important in engineering and can get you a long way in terms of applying for co-ops. Design teams are also super great for resume building. You can get lots of practical experience, and you can even get into leadership positions, which can look amazing on a resume. And then if you're going to apply for co-op and that sort of thing, it can really help you there. Being on an EDT can also help you kind of gain a sense of the industry. A lot of the time you have to network and talk to people who are working in the engineering industry already. So it's a great opportunity to make connections outside of the school as well, and then that can also help you get a co-op later on. So overall, there's a lot of things you can do at the UBCO campus. The engineering design teams and clubs are practically endless, so you'll definitely be able to find something you're interested in. There's so many opportunities, and I would definitely recommend checking them out. You can go see more and learn more about our student groups and our design teams, as well as the Engineering Society at this website, shown right there. And there's so much to learn and so much to see. So I would definitely recommend, even if you don't want to commit to joining the club in your first year, if you want to focus on academics, that's totally reasonable, but it's always great to get some hands-on experience and meet new people. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, seeing what the EDTs have to offer and what the clubs have to offer is definitely a great thing to start with.
Perfect. Thank you, Savannah. We're gonna jump ahead a little bit to uh our next guest speaker, which is gonna be Dr. Voder Bam. Dr. Bam?
Sorry, just had to find the unmute button.
All good, all
Right.
good.
So my name is Wouter Bam. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Engineering on the Okanagan campus. I joined UBC in 2023, so it's close to 3 years being here. And before working at UBC, I was a professor at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. I also did my undergrad in South Africa in industrial engineering before doing my master's in the UK at the University of Cambridge, focused on industrial systems, manufacturing, and management, and then finally completing a PhD that was jointly awarded in industrial engineering and economics between Stellenbosch University and KU Leuven in Belgium. So kind of having two hats most of the time, a bit of engineering, and then also interested in policy, economics, and thinking about the world in a more systems perspective. So what do I do at UBC? I teach the first years. So I will see you in the first term. As soon as you arrive, I will be teaching the course called Introduction to Sustainable Engineering Design. And in this course, we'll be covering the basics of everything from sustainability, how do we think about sustainability, how do we measure sustainability, and how do we link that to product design and making decisions about products. We'll then also cover professional responsibility and ethics, and even learning approaches. So really, it's a course that gives you a broad overview. It's maybe a bit of change of pace of some of the more heavy math courses that you'll also be taking in the same term. But you'll also be taking part in an actual design project, working in teams and developing your soft skills, things that are really valued in the industry and important to the rest of your engineering degree. These group projects, this will be your first taste, but we're going to lay the foundation for all the basics, project management, dealing with team conflicts that'll serve you well throughout your degree and culminate in your capstone project at the end of your degree, where you will be working in interdisciplinary teams with students from different disciplines to deliver an industry-led project that's also assessed by industry leaders. So a very big part of your training will be learning how to do design. Design really is a key part of being an engineer, and we will try and lay the foundation for that process in your first year. I also teach a fourth-year course on life cycle assessment. So if you are interested in life cycle assessment, and that's everything to do with, again, thinking about the environmental and social impact of products, then I might just see you again in your fourth year. I've mentioned research, and that's one of my key tips. So I'll be going through some key tidbits that I would suggest you keep in mind as you approach this first year. I know it's a daunting threshold that you'll be crossing. And some of my hot tips are to think about research already. Get to know your professors. You really have access to world-class researchers, and many of them will be teaching you through your 4 years. They have labs and they take in students. So many students work with professors, especially during the summer months, sometimes through formal programs such as the USRAs, known as the Undergraduate Student Research Awards. And these enable you to work in a professor's lab for the whole summer as a funded opportunity. And this gives you an experience to really see what is research for you, and is this particular field of interest to you? And you can learn really new methods, new parts of engineering that you may not have known existed. So I would recommend engage with your professors. There are many opportunities either before or after lectures. Often there's a couple of minutes where they're sitting up and waiting to start, but it isn't yet start time. There might be an opportunity to chat to them, often after lectures as well. And then we also have office hours. So what are office hours? Well, in our syllabi, so each course has a syllabus that you'll receive, usually posted online, that we spend a lot of time setting up, that outlines the whole term's work and what you can expect, but also administrative things such as how to engage with us. And one of these are office hours. So office hours usually times in a week that we set aside focused on this course and meeting with students. So you can usually just drop by and meet with the professor during those hours. Now, they work slightly different for different courses. Some of the courses has a lot of interest. Some of the math courses, usually the office hours are fully booked. Some of the other courses have more flexibility, and they can even be an opportunity for you just to learn about your professor's research activities. Then communication protocols. This is important, especially in the first year where the classes are generally quite big. So we cannot respond to all emails. And each course is slightly different, but each course usually has a communication protocol or like steps you usually need to take as you have questions. So our advice usually is check online first. We put a lot of time and effort into the syllabus. If you have a question, first check the syllabus and make sure that your question isn't already answered there. Then another key tip is come to class. A lot of information is transferred there. But I also sometimes fall asleep in class. So maybe ask your peers. Maybe you missed some of the information. And then different lecturers will give you different advice. Some will be open to receiving your emails if you've at least followed those steps. Others will only ask you to send messages through Canvas. So Canvas is the online platform where all the learning material will be uploaded and really the courses will be run, all your quizzes will be done there. So Canvas really is an important resource. Then another key study tip is to make study friends. So you really need other engineers. It's good. I know you probably want to escape the other engineers at some point and make friends outside of engineering, and that is also probably a good idea. But having friends in engineering that you regularly meet with, even just socially, can be good. Just to know they might remind you of some deadlines that you've forgotten about. They may be able to exchange notes. Maybe you set up a study group. So do try and engage with your peers. Another important thing is to try and have a balance. Engineering can be rough. It takes a lot of your time, but now is the time where you're also setting your habits for the future. So try and work into your schedule some physical exercise, and maybe join a few societies. You've heard of the amazing societies that UBC offers. Your university years really are a unique opportunity for you to try new things and learn about things just beyond your studies. But I would caution, especially as a professor, find a balance. It can be very tempting to do all societies and every single external activity and then not get to your studies. The first priority should be your studies. Engineering will take a lot from you and you should come ready to make that particular sacrifice. But of course, maybe think about the 5-year program, spreading things out if you want to also have a more rounded student experience. And then another, maybe last tip is everyone around you, all of the students, including yourself, are impressive. You have been selected because of your resume, because of all the hard work you've put in so far. So everyone around you really brings something to the table. They might be quirky, they might be very different from you. Initially, they might be super hard to work with in a team. They might not seem to be pulling their weight necessarily in the way that you expect them to. But do not underestimate anyone around you. Throughout my career, I've seen that some of the people that you might underestimate the most end up becoming really the most impactful people in the industry. So just know that you are being surrounded not only by really impressive world-leading researchers as professors, but also your peers will become the leaders of tomorrow. And they are really people who you will stand to benefit from knowing and being friends with. And learning to work together. Learning to work together in teams, multidisciplinary teams with people that are very different from you is a key skill that you should try and really hone. It's not something that comes naturally to most of us, but it's a skill that you can hone in your first year, and that will serve you well throughout your 4 years. That's my main piece of advice. We really look forward to welcoming you in the first term, and I'll hand back to our colleagues to take you through some of the other information you need to know.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Bam. Again, you'll be seeing him in first year, so remember that face and be sure to say hi, I guess, if you see him. We would like to give the floor to Addie here, who is the learning strategist with the Student Learning Hub. So we'll just let her take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Elliot. Hi, everyone. As Elliot said, my name is Addie McCurry. I am the learning strategist here at UBC Okanagan. And my job is essentially to help students figure out how to learn effectively at university. So that can be things like study strategies, time management, procrastination, motivation, and just figuring out what to do maybe if you feel like your current approach just isn't working. And it's really great that you guys are all here before the term even begins, so you can get all of this wonderful information, knowledge about all these supports and resources from this presentation before university, because it can really require a really significant shift in how we learn and also how we approach things. For me, I had study strategies in high school that worked really, really well. And then I came to university and I found out quite quickly that they weren't working as well as they had. Especially when I started having like multiple courses and labs and assignments and midterms and just a much larger amount of material coming at you at once. So one thing I really hope you remember, especially going through your first semester, is that struggling can very much be a part of it. And it does not mean that you aren't capable of learning the material and doing well if that happens. And oftentimes the problem is simply just the strategy that you're using. It's not you. So with that, I want to give you a few strategies that you can experiment with, especially when classes begin, and kind of explain what they are and why they work really well. So there's obviously a lot of different ways to study. You might hear people tell you a lot of things like this is the best way to study, or you have to do X, Y, Z. And there really isn't one perfect study method for every course. The more useful questions I am hoping you'll think about as you move through is, what am I trying to learn? And what will I eventually be asked to do with this information? And how can I study that in a way that works best for me? So the first strategy here is the Pomodoro technique, and that one is really about managing your attention rather than learning the content itself. So instead of sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to study calculus for 4 hours, you can break that time into more focused intervals. So Pomodoro, a common template for it is you do maybe 25 minutes of focus work, you put a timer on, and then you follow that with a 5 to 10 minute break. And after about 3 to 4 rounds, you take a longer break. You go and live life, eat lunch, whatever. So that's a typical kind of template, but really the strategy is just breaking up your studying so that you have very effective intervals of focused study time versus you just studying for 4 hours straight and not being able to maybe focus halfway through. And then the rest of that time kind of becomes wasted. So maybe you concentrate really well for 40 or 50 minutes. That's great. The general work to break ratio is just 3 to 1. So if you work for 60 minutes, take a 20-minute break, 30 minutes, take a 10-minute break, so on and so forth. So really the principle is just to break things throughout your studying and take that restorative time so you can maintain that attention and focus when you are actually taking time to learn your content. And additionally, when you're planning those study sessions, the important part is also creating a defined goal where you know exactly what you're working on and making that specific. So instead of your goal just being, I'm just going to study math, maybe your 25-minute goal or 40-minute goal is, I'm going to complete 2 or 3 practice problems on integration without looking at my notes unless I get stuck. That's much easier for our brain to act on than just saying, I'm studying math very broadly. Second one here is body doubling. So it's another strategy that's particularly helpful if your biggest difficulty might be actually getting started or staying on task. And all it means is just working alongside another person who is also working. And you don't necessarily have to be working on the same thing or even talking to each other. You might meet a classmate in the library and you say, okay, for the next 45 minutes, I'm doing these 5 problems. What are you working on? And then you both work and you check in afterwards. You can do the Pomodoro together and set a timer on your phones and put it in the middle of the table. Kind of structure it however seems best. And just that little bit of external accountability can just make it so much easier to follow through on what you do, especially if you were like me, which you won't be, but I procrastinated throughout my entire undergrad, and I really didn't take advantage of this strategy seriously, honestly, until my master's, and it helped tremendously. Final two here, flashcards and retrieval practice, they connect really nicely. One of the biggest kind of traps that I think some students can fall into is spending a lot of time interacting with their notes without actually testing whether they know the material and if they can retrieve it. So a lot of the times, maybe you're reading the same page of your notes, or you're looking over the lecture slides and you read them 4 times and you rewrote them and all of these things. And by the fourth time, everything looks incredibly familiar. And our brains kind of get this false sense of mastery and interpret that familiarity in the moment as like, I know this. But recognizing something um, is that's kind of sitting right in front of us is much, much different than being able to produce that or apply that without having anything nearby. So instead, we need to take the information away so that we're forced to retrieve it. So just closing our notes and asking ourselves, what were the 3 major concepts I just learned? Can I explain them without looking at my notes? Can I draw the process? Can I solve a problem from scratch? And then you can kind of check your answer. And for engineering courses, retrieval practice is most often going to be doing problems without having the solution sitting right beside you. So you try the problem, you identify exactly where your understanding breaks down, how and why you're solving the problem the way you are, and then you go back to your resources and also include your instructors and go to office hours to get any clarity. And that struggle to retrieve and apply that information is really, really useful. And it also simulates what an exam session is actually going to look like. Lastly here, you don't need to wait until midterms to start reviewing. One habit that's I'd really encourage you to try is spending even just 5 or 10 minutes after class at the end of the day, just retrieving what you learned that day, just seeing what can I remember? What can I remember from class? Can I explain anything without looking at my notes? What still doesn't make sense? This gives us a really early kind of warning system instead of discovering maybe 2 days before a midterm that we didn't understand something back in week 2. We're catching those gaps while they're still manageable and we can still go get help. Yeah, and then your ability to learn is also affected about what's happening outside of the classroom and study sessions. So particularly stress and sleep and really your overall health. So sleep is one of the things I talk about almost a lot, like as equally as I talk about study strategies, because it's really important in memory consolidation. And it essentially helps stabilize and integrate what you learn throughout the day. If you don't get that, nothing's going to be firing up here. It doesn't matter how much we study. We're not going to be able to pull it forward because we're so exhausted. So if you're ever deciding between, getting another several hours of studying into the night versus getting a really good night's sleep before an exam, please remember that sleep isn't taking time away from your learning. It's a part of the learning process, so it's really important to prioritize that. And that's also another reason why spreading your studying across several days is generally much more effective than trying to fit everything in one marathon session, maybe the night before. Stress is, it's also going to be a part of university, part of life. And some stress isn't inherently bad. Some stress is really good because it gives us energy. It tells us that something matters and it energizes us to stay focused on something. The issue is when stress becomes so high or so prolonged that it starts interfering with things like our concentration, like our sleep and decision making or getting started. So even just a simple strategy when you're feeling really overwhelmed and everything's floating around in your head, just taking some time to just write everything down, externalize it, all the assignments, lab reports, everything, and then even just separating into 2 columns of what actually needs my attention today, what can wait, and what's even the smallest action I can take. Working on my design project may feel really enormous, but maybe just a starting point of open the assignment and just identify the first requirement is something that we can actually start and feels really tangible. And UBCO has resources to help with stress as well. One particularly fun one is the BARK program, where students can spend time with therapy dogs on campus, and they do incredible research on how spending time with these dogs has shown to effectively lower our stress and thereby help our learning. I remember when I first came and I pet a dog for the first time, I almost like cried. It was like so wild. So yeah, occasionally one of my professional recommendations is go pet a dog. But more broadly, there's lots of supports here available to you, and you don't need to wait until something becomes a crisis to ask for help. And that segues nicely into the last thing I want to share with you all, which is that you have academic support available to you here at UBCO, free academic support. I work out of the Student Learning Hub. And so that is where you can book with me one-on-one, and we can talk about anything revolved around your learning goals. And additional to my services, we have amazing free subject tutors. They cover almost all first and second year app site courses. So you can also meet with them one-on-one to talk about any course content that is challenging. So you can book appointments with either myself or the subject tutors through QReserve. You can literally just type in Student Learning Hub, UBCO, and it'll be the first thing that pops up on Google. And you can book either online or in-person appointments. And our Student Learning Hub is located in Lib 237, so just through the west entrance of the library. So please come check us out. We are here to help you, and thank you all so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Addie. We'll be moving on to our frequently asked questions before we head into the final question section. I see that there are a couple questions posted. Honestly, keep them coming. We're here to have you guys be informed. So if you have any question at all, let us know and we'll answer it. So let's just go through the FAQ that we got from your guys' registration invitations. So, big one that we saw, do you need to study over the summer? Short answer, no. You have already made it into university. You did the hard part. You are not required to study over the summer, and a lot of the courses will have review sections where they will go over the basics of a topic to get you kind of up to speed if you don't remember everything from high school, or even if you didn't take a class that covered that, there are review. And again, there are a lot of structures in place to help you learn that material if you don't have sort of that beforehand experience. If you do want to study over the summer or do something that could help you for your studies, I would recommend learning the basics of Python coding. That is, I actually work as one of the subject tutors that Addie mentioned, and one of the largest subjects that people come to me is learning to code. If you get kind of boots on the ground learning, just like opening up a coding editor and just try, it will honestly give you a really good head start going into your coding classes in your first year. Just like, honestly, any sort of practice with that, trial and error, it'll be really helpful. But again, you do not need to do this. This is for your own learning if you want to, and it can help in your first year. There will still be topics covered in first year to learn how to code. It's just, it is relatively difficult. So if you want to get a leg up on that, you are more than free to do so.
Next up, we have, when do you choose your disciplines? So once you reach second year standing, after completing all of your first year classes, you will get an email from the School of Engineering prompting you to declare your discipline. And UBC Okanagan offers civil, electrical, mechanical, and computer engineering. So after your first year, you will get to pick.
Perfect. Next thing to cover is a little bit of what you'll be learning. Sometimes the class descriptions don't give a full picture, or maybe they do, but this list here is kind of the general topics that will be covered. Stuff like calculus, physics, linear algebra, chemistry, coding, technical writing, sustainable design, which Dr. Bam will teach, and drawing and design are the general core first year classes that you'll take before you go into your second year and choose your discipline, which will allow you to choose more courses that are specific to your discipline and what you might want to eventually do in the workplace.
Next up,
Apologies.
how many classes will you be taking? The standard degree plan has students taking 6 courses per semester, which is a 4-year program, and then there's also the option to do the 5-year plan, which extends the degree by 1 year, and you'll be taking 5 courses a semester instead of 6. You can change whichever one you want to be doing midway through the semester if you'd like. If you start with taking 6 classes per semester, you can drop down to 5 at any time. To learn more about the schedules and that sort of thing for your classes, contact the Academic and Career Advising Office through the QR code.
Perfect. So I guess we've come to the end of the presentation. So we'll open the floor to questions. I see that we have a couple in the chat here, but if a question wasn't answered, just put it in the chat and we'll take this time to go through and answer what we can. So I see one question here, which is, I noticed that the engineering co-op program starts in second year. Is it possible for first year engineering students to obtain summer internships or engineering related work after first year, either independently or through UBC-GO Career Services? If so, what resources or supports are available to help first year students find those opportunities? That is a great question. Co-op can sometimes be a little bit complicated when you hear about it for the first time. So yes, you can only officially apply for the co-op program, which is a specific program that has certain resources and accommodations, such as university wage subsidization, which again, you can only apply for once you've completed your first year. But if you want to, you can apply to any engineering company in Kelowna or abroad if they have remote work and just fire them a resume. You can just have an internship. If you want, there is a specific place where university partners and as well as university positions will be posted, which is the UBC job board. I might be able to find a link for that and put that in the chat in a couple minutes here. But you can find a bunch of jobs there. There are volunteer opportunities. There are full-on like work study if you wanted to work with the university. Maybe you'll take my job. There are also other opportunities from companies such as co-op applications and other just miscellaneous jobs in Kelowna that get posted to that board. So if you want, that is a place where you can look for stuff like that. For specific resources for applying when not in the co-op program, there are resources out of the library that help with resume and cover letter. Other than that, I don't believe there are any specific resources to apply for engineering positions outside of the co-op program, but I could be incorrect on that, and I would actually recommend that you check out the co-op website, which we had on one of these slides here. Let me just bring that up real quick. Yeah, you can check here for some more information regarding that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Perfect.
Got some good questions coming in. One of the next questions was for frosh kits, will they be available to buy on campus or is it necessary to pre-register for them? Typically, they will be available to register for them on campus once you arrive, but it is better to pre-register just so that the Engineering Society kind of has an idea of how many people are ordering them and just to make sure that they don't run out. So the sooner the better, essentially.
Perfect. I have one here. I understand that Windows software is needed for engineering. Does that mean that I must get a Windows laptop or can I simply download Windows software onto my MacBook? So I'm going to answer that in two parts. One, most Windows software won't run on a MacBook, which is unfortunate. It's a software difference. There are methods of getting Windows on your Mac computer, which you could use for that. You'd have to look that up, but I believe there's something some things you can do where you partition your disk space and have both a Mac operating system and a Windows operating system on one machine. If you do that, then yes, you'd be able to keep the one laptop and run the Windows products. But again, if you don't want to go through that effort, there are free computers in the library which are run on Windows and have those programs pre-installed. So don't feel too pressured to do that. It is good to have them on your personal laptop so you can access them when you're not on campus or in case so the library is full and you can't find a computer. But if absolutely necessary, you can go to the library and there will be those resources there.
Mm-hmm. The next question in the chat was, is the new makerspace open? Do you recommend taking the safety course to access the makerspaces? I don't know about the new makerspace, but the regular makerspace and the hackerspace are both open. I would very much recommend taking the safety course to have access to the makerspaces. It's really quick, it's super easy to complete, and the people who work there are super nice and very open with their availability to talk or meet if you have any questions. And the Makerspace is an excellent resource for your first year design courses. A lot of the time, people will have to use 3D printers and that sort of thing during their first year courses, and having access to the Makerspace just makes it a lot easier and a lot faster, and having access to all those devices is really helpful.
Just to add on to that, the new makerspace is going to be in I don't remember the name of the building, but it's one that's under construction right now. So the new makerspace is not going to be open till probably 1 or 2 years from now, but the current makerspace is open, as Savannah mentioned. I have a question here. If I were to take the 5-year program, what would the tuition cost be? You're taking the same number of classes when you are doing the 4-year program or the 5-year program. So, and since the cost is tied to the number of classes, that part will be the same. The only difference is that there are certain overhead costs that come with, like, such as the bus pass or your insurance or stuff like that. If you are to take the 5-year program, you would need to add an extra year of that. And also, there are times when the tuition goes up over the year, so that would increase it a little bit. It's a marginal increase in cost. Um, I can't give you an exact number, but what I can mention is that if you're really feeling that that extra year is worth it, I would recommend it, even if it's maybe 100 something more dollars. It is worth it for you to feel confident in your learning and don't rush through just because that's what everybody else is doing. Take your learning at your pace. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. And then the next question from the chat is, are there any minimum spec requirements for the Windows laptop? I don't believe so, but you can check out some of the websites we have to offer. There is definitely specifications, I'm sure. A lot of the time profs will also like go over what kind of computer will work best for you. Typically, if your laptop isn't good at like high enough speed or that kind of thing for running the kind of softwares, again, we would recommend using the free computers on campus. Typically, though, pretty much anything will work. Sometimes it might just be slow or drain your battery really fast, but usually it's okay. Whatever laptop you have should be fine if it's Windows.
Perfect. And to add on to that, I have a question here. Would I be able to use a Linux laptop? It's the same thing with the Mac OS. The programs aren't coded to work on Linux, so you would need to have a Windows operating system, I believe. Another question we have here, do we need to learn how to use SolidWorks in CAD courses? So yes, your 171 class will teach you how to use SolidWorks, and that'll be where you exercise that skill and build it. So you don't need to already know how to use CAD programs coming in to engineering. The classes will be here for you to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm. One of the next questions we have is, when are scholarships handed out? Typically, scholarships are handed out at the beginning of the school year, probably first couple months September. Normally, if you like know that you're receiving a scholarship, the School of Engineering will reach out to you and kind of communicate that kind of thing with you. If there's scholarships that you are still in the process of applying for and that sort of thing, or scholarships that are outside UBC that you're receiving from other places like companies, that sort of thing. Typically, the company will communicate with UBC and that kind of thing, and then they'll reach out to you to let you know what you need to do. But typically, either the company or UBC will tell you what you need to do, and typically it'll be done within the first semester, depending on the scholarship. There's also some scholarships that'll be received like second semester or later in the year. It just depends on the scholarship itself.
Perfect. Last question here we have is, do students in single connected rooms have access to a fridge? Savannah, you might be able to speak to this better than I can.
Yes. Typically, in all the dorms that don't have their own fridge, there will be like a kitchen on each floor of the building, and there'll be a fridge in there. It is a shared fridge, so I would highly recommend labeling things if you're going to be using that fridge. A lot of people also opt to just get mini fridges. I'm sure there's probably people in Kelowna selling them on Facebook Marketplace because a lot of first years will get mini fridges just to have them in their dorm and have their own fridge.
Two clubs related questions. Savannah?
What does the process of applying to EDT/Cubs look like? Furthermore, is it smart to join a club in your first year with very little experience in engineering design? Rather, would it be advantageous to wait for our second year when we have obtained further experience in engineering related projects? So there isn't really a process for applying. Typically, you can just join a club or join an engineering design team. During the beginning of the year, design teams will typically have a sort of general meeting where they go over what each team is doing, what the plans for that EDT are for the year, and that kind of thing. And within that meeting, you'll kind of get a sense of where in that club you want to be working, that sort of thing. And you typically just sign up. There isn't really an application process. Um, for in terms of the experience, I would say joining a club or EDT in first year is definitely advantageous. It kind of sets you up to have more knowledge going into second year. It can help you get ahead in your schoolwork sometimes. There's also typically within design teams and clubs lots of people in engineering who are in higher years levels than you. So they can help you out with schoolwork, give you advice, that kind of thing, and that's definitely handy to have. So I would definitely recommend getting into a club or EDT in your first year. You don't have to. In your second year is still a great time to do it. But yeah, I think the amount of experience you have going into the club doesn't really matter. They'll be happy to have you no matter what, and you'll learn a lot while you're going through things, and you'll learn a lot from your higher ups and executives in the club, and you do a lot of hands-on learning as you go kind of things, so the amount of experience you have is not important. And then, what's the maximum amount of clubs and design teams you recommend to join in your first and second year? I think that's really dependent on the individual. Personally, I joined, I think, 3 clubs in my first year, and then later on, I kind of changed it up and joined an EDT later on. So it really depends on the person. I know a lot of people who wanted to really focus on their studies in first year, so they didn't end up joining anything, which is totally fine too. It really just depends on how you're handling the workload, that kind of thing. You can also like join a club early in the year and then decide it's a lot of work and you can't commit to it and you need to focus on your studies and you can quit. That's totally fine to do as well. So it really just depends on the person. If you feel like you're able to commit the amount of time that EDTs and clubs kind of require, then go for it. Join as many as you want. There's no limit. Just make sure that you're still keeping up with your schoolwork. And then the how many hours a week is typical to commit to an EDT. This is pretty different between EDTs. It really depends on which EDT you're joining. And I'm sure if you go to their general meetings, they'll kind of give you a good idea of how much time you will have to commit. It'll also be dependent on what you're doing specifically for that EDT. If you're working kind of in the management side of things, it'll probably be a little bit less than if you're working on technical things. But typically, I would say average, probably very minimum, like 10 hours a week during busier seasons. EDTs typically have a lot of work to be done and a lot of meetings and time commitments just to make sure that everything's on track time-wise. You can probably opt to give more time or less time. Most EDTs won't really mind if you kind of fluctuate with how much time you're able to give them. As long as you're communicating that, typically clubs are very open to anything.
Perfect. I have a question here. If I decided to take the 5-year program route, can I take extra classes during the summer to keep my degree 4 years long? Yes, this is possible. It's important to note, though, that only certain classes are offered during the summer term. So you would need to probably meet with an academic advisor and have your schedule be very carefully built. So that way you can maximize the amount of courses that are available to you over the summer. Um, some classes just straight up are not offered. So if they're not offered over the summer, you'll have to take them during the regular school year. But yes, you would be able to do that, take the 5-year program, but then have classes over the summer. I think the real question is there is like a five course per semester and then a couple over the summer. Very possible. Again, you just need to choose those classes very specifically so that way you can actually take them over the summer to complete your degree.
Yeah, definitely.
And another one here, what programming language is used in the first year computation course? So that has actually changed a little bit over the past couple years. I believe currently it's Python. It used to be C++. Um, the general skills of coding is very it shifts. It's very cross applicable between the different programming languages. So even if you decide over the summer, you take the recommendation of learning to code using Python, it'd still be applicable in case they switch to like Pascal or something. They won't do that. But it's more so the skills that you're learning on how to code, not necessarily the syntax. But I believe it's Python currently.
Mm-hmm. And then next question is, when can I start taking elective courses? Typically, you begin taking electives in second year because you will choose your discipline and then that'll be your discipline specific courses, and you will have typically one humanities elective to choose from in your second year. And then your fourth year courses will pretty much all be like design electives and technical electives that you can choose from based on your interests. And then next, are there any clubs and events where you can collaborate with students in the UBC Vancouver campus? I don't think there's any like events from regular clubs or EDTs where you're collaborating with the Vancouver campus. A lot of EDTs will compete against the UBC Vancouver campus, but there is one event that NSOC typically hosts. I don't know if they'll have it again this year, where students from UBC Vancouver will come here for a couple days and visit and kind of do patch trading and have a couple engineering events. And typically there is a lot of interaction between the engineering society here and the engineering society at the Vancouver campus. But event-wise, there isn't very much collaboration. Is there a schedule/timetable for when EDTs and clubs happen, and will some overlap with classes? Typically, EDTs and clubs will make their own schedule based on the people in that club or based on their execs. EDTs will typically have, like, I don't know if you know what a timeful is, but it's this sheet where you put in your schedule and then they see the overlap and see what the best time for meetings is. So normally they will use those kind of resources to pick the meeting times and that kind of thing. But clubs, a lot of the time, events and those kinds of things will overlap with classes. typically, clubs will try and have events during times where they know people are going to be available. So they'll look at first year class schedules and see when the most people would be available to come to an event. But sometimes there will be overlap, and sometimes there will be event meetings or EDT meetings that just don't work with your schedule because there's a lot of people who have different schedules, that kind of thing. So there's no set schedule, but each EDT will make it individually. I think that
Perfect.
might be it.
We don't have any more current questions, but we'll leave the time open in case anybody comes up with a question that just pops into their head. Um, Again, past that, if you feel that your question has been answered, you have the information for the presentation, you are free to go about your day. Again, we'll just stay here for any remaining questions. We will be posting a link to the YouTube recording of this session that will be sent to your emails that you use to sign up. So if you happen to come in late, don't worry. The video will be there and you can watch it back at your own leisure. Uh, yeah, thank you guys for attending, and hopefully we'll see you on campus soon. And then again, if anybody has any questions, please let us know. We're here to quell your worries.
What are good ways to increase my chances of being accepted for co-op after my second year? I got into co-op after my third year, but I would definitely recommend having some club or volunteering or EDT, any kind of experience on your resume will definitely help. Typically, the co-op applications are open, I believe, in August is when you normally apply for them. In previous years, they've had like video applications where you record a short video of yourself, and other years they have not done that, so it's hard to say what kind of thing they'll be doing that can, if there's a video interview, just making sure that that video is really solid can definitely help your chances. But other than that, I would say having any kind of extracurriculars or experience outside of school, as well as having good grades. There is a grade requirement for the co-op program. I believe it's 60 or above, which in engineering is good standing, so that makes sense. But other than that, just having decent grades and making sure that you have some sort of extracurriculars on your resume would definitely help.
Perfect. Maybe we can speak a little bit more on the co-op program in specifically, just in case anybody has any more questions. We went through it a bit more, but again, you can worry about like setting yourself up for co-op, but you can only apply for it in your second year. So like it's not something to be super concerned about in your first year, but also don't ignore it if it is something you want to pursue. Do you have anything more that you might want to add to that, Savannah?
Um, I would say generally, even if you don't know if you want to go on co-op, I would say apply for the co-op program because it would be better to get in and then end up not needing it or not doing it than to realize later in your degree that you should do a co-op and want to do a co-op and that sort of thing. If you're kind of on the bridge and you don't know if you want to do a co-op, apply. Doesn't hurt. I would also just generally recommend co-op. It's a great experience to have, and it'll definitely help you once you graduate if you're looking to get into the workforce. It definitely helps having that experience and that network of people who you've met through your co-op and that sort of thing. So would highly recommend it.
We have another question here. Do you apply to co-op again in third year if you don't get it in second year? Yes, you can
Yes.
apply any number of times. So if you apply in your second year and it turns out you're unaccepted, which is unfortunate, you can apply again in third year and maybe you'll get accepted. The only restrictions, which you will be able to see on the co-op website, is that you have first years at least completed your first year courses and that you have at least 9, I believe, uh, credits left in your degree. So
Yes.
basically, they want you to still have a semester left when you finish your co-op term. So that way you're not just like you do your co-op, then you're out. You still have a little bit
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. The other thing is the applications are like different from year to year, so sometimes the requirements will be different. In my second year, I ended up like barely making the deadline, and my application just wasn't super great because I wasn't paying attention to the deadline. So I did not get co-op in my second year, but then I reapplied in third year and I did get it. So you can definitely apply as many times as it takes to get in. Just make sure you're watching those deadlines because you don't want that to be the reason that you didn't get into the co-op program.
And checking your email for those deadlines and
Yeah,
those
they
information.
will be emailed. Is there a minimum co-op length, like 8 months or 12? So if you're in the co-op program, to be able to have it say that you completed the co-op program on your like transcript when you graduate, you have to complete 16 months or 4 terms of co-op experience. Um, that's really only if you want it to be on your diploma, that kind of thing, which isn't super important. So once you get into the co-op program, it's kind of up to you. Or even if you want to do it outside the co-op program, it really doesn't matter. You can do 4 months at a time. Typically, it's up to the company. Most companies will have a 4 month minimum because otherwise you're not really able to do much in any less amount of time. But within the co-op program, you have to complete 16 months to get it on your diploma when you graduate. Other than that, 4 months is the typical minimum, but companies vary.
I believe also 12 is the maximum, so you won't be able to work the full like 16 required months in a row. The maximum you can do is 12 and then have a semester off and then another 4 months.
Are you only allowed to apply to jobs located in BC using the co-op job portal? Can you apply to cities in Alberta, for example? You can apply to cities anywhere in the world if you'd like. There's really no limits. Typically, not very many students get jobs abroad, but some do. I know someone who ended up getting a 12-month co-op in Germany next year. You can apply to co-ops anywhere in Canada and even the States or even further abroad if you'd like, pretty much anywhere. Personally, I did get a job in Alberta and I will be going to work in Alberta, so really anywhere you can get a job.
We have one here that says, "What is the best laptop for engineering?" I can't give you a specific laptop recommendation. What we can recommend is more so the specs that you want. Again, the programs that you'll be using will mostly only be compatible with Windows, so something that runs the Windows operating system. A lot of the stuff that we do in engineering is very computationally heavy. So getting a computer that has a good CPU as well as a decent amount of RAM to run your programs and whatever simulation's doing with, say, MATLAB, that'd be a good recommendation. For SolidWorks, that has a bit of a graphical edge. You don't need a like really high-end GPU in your computer, but just decent amount of RAM and a good CPU and runs Windows should be more than enough.
Yep. Next up, we've got, are we allowed to use recording devices during lectures? Typically, no. There is a DRC resource where it does allow you to record device or use recording devices during lectures with the consent of professors, of course, but typically, just generally, you are not allowed to record lectures.
Perfect. Are there any resources to help you decide what discipline you want to pursue? Uh, I think if you go onto the UBC engineering website, the UBC Okanagan engineering website, there are a lot of descriptions on what kind of work or jobs you can get with each discipline. That will probably be the best way to find what you're interested or which one you want to do is to look at that list, see what's the most interesting, or even throughout your first year, depending on the classes you take, you might find certain subjects to really stand out to you. Say you like, uh, you take 178, which is electromagnetism and waves, and you end up really liking it. You like doing all the calculations with whatnot, then you can maybe consider going into electrical. Or if you like doing statics and you like doing all the equilibrium problems, you can decide that maybe civil is the path that you want to go. So the best way I would say to choose your discipline is to find what you like in engineering and then move towards that.
Next up, we've got, do students from Ontario need to apply for the BC Health Plan, or is it all covered in tuition? There is a great amount of things that are covered in your insurance that you get from the school. You would have to look specifically into what things are covered, which there is definitely a website. If you look up like UBC-OK insurance plan for students, you could probably see more of the details about what's covered. But I know for sure it covers a lot of dental, like general health, eye things, that kind of stuff. I'm from Alberta and I did not have to apply for a BC health plan, so pretty much everything that you would need day to day, that kind of stuff is covered. And your like, I don't know what they have in Ontario, but your equivalent of like a BC health card will still get you into a hospital in case of emergencies and that kind of thing. So you should be pretty much covered and you shouldn't need to apply for the BC health plan.
On that note, most of the questions that you have about insurance can be addressed on the SUO website, which I put up here. So if you want, you can scan the QR code and learn a bit more from that website.
Thanks.
All good. Next question. Which course is the calculus course? I believe that is APSCI 172, also known as engineering analysis. It's not called calculus, unfortunately, but it goes over the concepts in calculus.
Yep, and then we've got, do we need goggles for labs if we have glasses? Yes, you still need lab goggles, either ones that fit over your glasses, or there are some alternatives. If you have like pretty decently sized glasses, there is little like shields that you can add on to the sides of your glasses, and those are still okay for PPE. But I would recommend wearing goggles over your glasses. I wear glasses and normally I just wear contact lenses to labs because wearing goggles over it's just easier that way, but you do still need to wear goggles.
Next question here. Are there lockers available to us? I believe there are some lockers available, but it depends on the classes that you're taking. In general, there aren't any lockers for you to use. You will bring whatever stuff you need to make you for the day in a backpack, and then you're typically going to take it home with you to either your residence or wherever you live in Kelowna. The only scenario that I know about where you would have a locker is if you're using one of the labs in the EME building. I believe there's a concrete lab where you can store stuff like your steel toe boots and your safety goggles and hard hat, which, and maybe some other like very niche cases. In general, you don't get a locker. You would have to bring your stuff in like a backpack and then store it at wherever you're living.
Next we have, is there a master's degree for aerospace engineering? If so, then how many years does it take to achieve it? At the UBC Okanagan campus, I do not believe there's a master's in aerospace specifically. A lot of people will get a master's in, say, mechanical engineering and then specialize in aerospace, which is something you can also do with your undergrad. And a master's typically could take anywhere between 3 and 5 to 6 years. It really depends on what you're doing and what kind of research you're into. But overall, there's a ton of information on that at the graduate studies website, which you can just find by looking up UBC OK graduate studies for engineering.
Another question here. Are any non-engineering classes required to get your engineering degree? So at UBC, they want students to be well-rounded. So yes, you will be required to take one humanities elective during your degree. There's a specific spot where it can show you approved electives. Not every elective is approved by the SOE. So there is a link. I think it's available through academic advising, and you can also book with Tamara, as we had on before, to check what options are available and which are interesting to you.
How do you declare a minor? Typically, you will have to declare a minor after your first year, usually in the same time that you declare your discipline, you can declare a minor. Or if you decide later on that you would like to start doing a minor, you can declare it anytime after that as well, as long as there's still enough time in your degree that you would be able to take the required courses for that minor. Typically at UBCO, a lot of engineers will take a minor in comp sci, and that will add on a couple extra comp sci courses. So you just have to make sure there's enough time left in your degree that you can take those courses to have that minor.
Follow-up question for the humanities course. What year is the one humanities course typically taken in? So it's usually taken in second year. And depending on which degree path you take, whether the 5-year or 4-year program, it can either be in your second year or your third year. But typically for those taking the 4-year program, you take it in your second year.
Yeah. Next is, are there any on-campus jobs available for first years? Absolutely. There's tons of on-campus jobs. You can work for the School of Engineering like Elliot and I, or you can work for food services or the convenience store. There's tons of different jobs you can have on campus. There is a UBC Okanagan job board that you can take a look at if you're interested in finding an on-campus job. So yeah, there's lots of availability. You just have to make sure you apply at the right time. Is applications for the second year co-op mainly judged based on your first year academic performance, or does joining specific clubs or design teams or research encouraged/helpful? It's definitely really helpful to join design teams or do research or have some kind of extracurricular experience. Those are definitely a great way to better your chances at getting into the co-op program. They do look at your grades though. There is a standard grade that you have to be eligible to apply for the co-op program. It's not a super high average, but it definitely helps your chances to have as high an average as you can. But I would say joining clubs and having extracurricular experience is definitely super helpful with getting into the co-op program.
Another follow-up to the campus jobs. How can we apply and where for these jobs? So I'm going to type an answer to this. I will link the student job board there. So if you want to see that, you can check it out there. I'll also post it in the chat for anybody who's interested. Just if you go here and then I believe you need to sign in with your CWL, but if not, then that's all good. Just go to the student section and then you can access the job board. There's a bunch of options for the distance that you want, what type of jobs, what kind of opportunities, whether volunteer, paid, work study, or co-op, anywhere in between. You can check that out there, find whatever opportunity that you're looking for.
Yep. And then, would you recommend bringing a bicycle to campus while living on campus? That's really up to how active you are and how active you want to be. There is typically storage for bicycles in or around dorm buildings. Either there'll be bike racks outside, or if I'm correct, there is a couple different dorm buildings that have a bike rack within your room where you can wall mount it, which is super handy if you're into biking. Um, you can if you want. The summer isn't too bad heat-wise, and the winter is not very cold, at least in my opinion, so I think biking around campus is definitely a good idea, especially if you have a meal plan and you don't need to go buy groceries. Having a bike can be nice. It is also very, very hilly in Kelowna around campus area, so just keep that in mind.
Just to add on to that quickly, there are also a lot of really nice biking opportunities. Kelowna put in just a couple of years ago the rail trail, which connects
Mhm.
UBC campus all the way down to downtown in kind of one straight shot along this paved path. So if you want to get from campus to downtown and you have a bike, you can do that pretty easily. Are electric scooters allowed on campus? I believe we have Lime scooters
We
on
do.
campus. I've seen the Lime scooters and the Lime bikes. So if you have your own, that's fantastic. You feel free to bring it with you. But we also have the Lime scooters and Lime bikes, which you can access on your phone through, I believe, a dedicated app or Uber if you
Yep.
wanted to use those as well.
Yes. Is it possible to drive from UBCO at any time, and how effective is it to own and go to UBC from UBCO? From UBC Vancouver to UBC Okanagan can be a 4 to 5-ish hour drive, depending on time of day, that sort of thing. Personally, I drove out here from Calgary, and that's like a 6 or 7, 8 hour drive, depending on how fast you're going. But yeah, you can drive to UBCO at any time. There's no gates or anything, so you can park anytime. There's just certain parking lots for overnight parking, so you just have to make sure that you don't get a ticket. But other than that, yeah, having a car here is pretty nice.
When do applications for dorming close? Uh, I'm actually not too sure on this one. If whoever posted that, if you can post it non-anonymously, we can follow up with you and provide you that resource. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer offhand. Savannah, do you happen to know?
Um, Typically around the beginning of May for the winter session to have guaranteed housing. Around the end of May, housing applications close for dorms. It's different per summer semester or the winter semester, so, but you can always find that kind of stuff. We have like our housing websites. I can probably link that in the chat just so you guys have that information. But yeah, typically around May. I'll just put that link in the chat.
You can also check the UBCO housing website that has important dates on there, which
I just sent it, so
okay,
it
perfect.
should
Yeah.
be available. How do you apply for research positions? Would you like to answer?
Sure. So research positions, you can find it. You can find some positions on the aforementioned job board, which is again, the link for that is in the chat. Another great way of finding positions and applying is through professors. Uh, most professors have a research program, so if you go up to them, ask them, "Hey, I'm interested in what you're doing. Can I join?" Uh, Sometimes you'll get a yes, sometimes you get a no, is what it is, but they'll direct you as well. We also have on the professional development website a link to the the UBC-GO research website, which I will grab a link for right now and put that in the chat as well.
And then we've got, is there a specific elective or language course that needs to be taken during first year at UBCO? Yeah, so we typically have, it's technically not an elective. There is an I can't remember specifically the name of the course, but there is an engineering English course that you need to take in your first year. It is AppSci 176, I believe, and it's basically the English course of engineering, but it is not an elective. It's a mandatory first year course that everyone takes.
Follow-up question for the research positions. Are those research positions paid? Yes, you will be paid for your time in research. So yes, you will be paid. I think this one might be best suited for you, Savannah.
Ah, yes. In what year do you recommend to take the co-op experience? So, I would definitely recommend you apply for co-op as soon as you can after your first year of engineering. And if you don't get in your first try, you can always apply again the next year. That's what happened to me. It's not the biggest deal if you don't get in the first time, you just apply next time. But I would definitely recommend you apply early on because once you get into the engineering co-op program, you can choose to take your co-op pretty much whenever you want. You're just not allowed to take it in the last semester of your degree. So as long as you take it at some point where you will end up having one semester left of regular classes, then it doesn't matter when you take it. So I would definitely recommend applying as soon as you can, because then you have the most options in terms of when you want to take your co-op terms.
Next question here. How competitive is it for getting your specialization for second year? How can it be guaranteed regardless of the specialization? Or is it based on your first year academic performance? So at UBC-GO Okanagan, you are guaranteed to get your specialization. Unlike Vancouver, we don't have, I believe it's as many students. So we have the resources and the faculty to have everybody get their specialization. It does not depend on your grades. It doesn't depend on anything else. Just as long as you have first year standing, then you can apply for whatever specialization you want. It just changes the courses that you'll take. In what order do you recommend prioritizing the types of courses, labs, lectures, discussion, etc.? Would you say computer tablets is the best / fastest way to keep up during class? So prioritizing the different things. Okay. I'm not really sure it's a good idea to solely focus on certain parts of your class, whether that be like the labs, lectures, discussions, and like prioritize over them. They all offer very useful insights and learning opportunities. So being able to give them about an equal amount of attention and making sure that you get to all of them is the best kind of path forward there. Uh, and to the second point, recommend using computer tablet versus notes. It's more so what you find to be the most helpful and the quickest. If you find that you are able to write things down with your hands better, then you can go with physical notes. And if that helps you with kind of getting that, like, you write it with your hand, it gets put into your brain easier method, you can try that. If you feel that it's better to have things typed out quickly and formatted on something like an Excel document or some kind of word sheet, you can do that. Or you can do something like a OneNote drawing pad and taking notes that way, kind of a mix of both. Um, if you have the opportunity to try all of them, you could try all of them and see which one works for you. There's not really a one size fits all solution to that.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, with the prioritizing labs, lectures, or discussions, typically labs and discussions are there to supplement your lectures, so you can't really prioritize one or the other because they're all kind of working together to help you understanding in the course content. So typically you will have to pay attention to all of them. Lectures will definitely be more of listening and taking notes, and labs are more like practical applications of what you learned in your lecture. And typically, discussions will be kind of tutorials where teaching assistants will go through questions with you and help you understand the course content in like a mathematical application kind of sense. So typically, they all work together to help with your understanding of the course.
Question here. Is it normal to have scheduled courses back to back with no spare time in between courses? So yes, there will be some configurations of your courses that will leave you with no time in between them. Depending on how many of those in a row you have, that can get kind of tiring. So it's important to bring stuff like food to keep yourself awake and that kind of idea. More or less, yes, it is normal to have classes that are back to back.
Yeah. Typically, professors will also end class 10 minutes before the actual hour. So if you have a class from 11 to 12:30, it's technically actually from 11 to 12:20 so that you have 10 minutes to get between buildings and that sort of thing as well.
Follow up. Is 10 minutes usually enough time to get from one class to another? Yes, 10 minutes is usually enough time. I think the furthest that you can possibly go is from the EME building to the Arts and Science building, and that's about a 5-minute walk. So
Yeah.
add in time to pack up, and as well, sometimes lectures don't start exactly on time. You'll have plenty of time to get from class to class.
Yeah. The buildings at UBC Okanagan are pretty collected, so typically it's definitely enough time. Usually the longest part is having to go up flights of stairs, so you'll be okay.
Last question here. What were some important questions that should, oh, sorry, I'm struggling to read. What were some important questions that should taken notes of in the first Zoom meeting this morning? Ooh, that is a good question. I don't believe we'll have enough time to go over. There were a lot of good questions, so instead of trying to half-heartedly regurgitate what we remember, we will be sending out a link to both sessions to whichever email you use to sign up. So if you want, you can skip right to the end because the content before that will be all the same, and just go through the questions there, skip around if you feel that you don't need the answer to something. Yep.
Yeah. There was a lot of good questions about engineering design teams, clubs, co-op. So if you're interested in those things, I would definitely recommend just watching the last bit of the video.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for your time. Thank you for joining the Ready to UBC Go event. We'll have you guys about your day and look forward to seeing you on campus soon.